All right, welcome everyone for 52 Living Ideas, Tao Te Ching, the translation and interpretation meetup. And today we will continue from last week. Last week we finished at chapter 54. And today we are going to start from chapter 55. And oh no, I'm sorry. Last week we finished 53. We will start from 54 and 55, and we may go to 56. I think that's our schedule. And the format will be, please raise your hand to read your favorite in translation, and then Amang and I are going to share our translation, and then we can discuss chapter by chapter. And when we discuss, please focus on the chapter. And then after we done 2 or 3 chapter, then Shrinka will host the meetup. We will continue to discuss the general idea for Tao Te Ching. So let's start from chapter 54. Okay, if anyone want to read your translation, please raise your hand or type question mark, exclamation mark. We have Brian.
Okay. Well, this will be me because
Penny, yeah.
Brian would like to read as much. So I'm going to read the Jia Fu Fang. What is firmly established cannot be uprooted. What is firmly grasped cannot slip away. It will be honored from generation to generation. Cultivate virtue in yourself, and virtue will be real. Cultivate it in the family, and virtue will abound. Cultivate it in the village, and virtue will grow. Cultivate it in the nation, and virtue will be abundant. Cultivate it in the universe, and virtue will be everywhere. Therefore, look at the body as body, look at the family as family, look at the village as village, look at the nation as nation, look at the universe as universe. How do I know the universe is like this? By looking.
Thank you, Penny. Anyone want to read your version? Oh, it's surprise. No.
Jason, I'll read. I'm sorry, this is Connie. I can't get my, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
I can read mine. I'm sorry, I couldn't get my keypad to work. I'm reading Ursula Le Guin, if you'd like. I know Shirkant loves this version. Some rules. Well planted is not uprooted. Well kept is not lost. The offerings of the generations to the ancestors will not cease. To follow the way yourself is real power. To follow it in the family is abundant power. To follow it in a community is steady power. To follow it in the whole country is lasting power. To follow it in the world is universal power. So in myself, I see what self is. In my household, I see what family is. In my town, I see what community is. In my nation, I see what a country is. In the world, I see what is under heaven. How do I know the world is so? By this.
Thank you, Connie. So, Connie, if you can fix your background noise, that'd be great.
Oh, do I have background noise?
Yes.
Okay, let me work on it.
Shall we go to ours, Jason?
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
I'm sorry.
Anyone have your version want to read? Otherwise, we will go to.
I can read, Jason. This is Nalini.
Okay, please.
What is well planted will not be uprooted. What is well held will not escape. Children and grandchildren will not cause to praise it. Cultivate virtue in yourself, and it will be true. Cultivate virtue in the family, and it will be overflowing. Cultivate virtue in the town, and it will be lasting. Cultivate virtue in the country, and it will be abundant. Cultivate virtue in the word, and it will be universal. Therefore, see others as yourself, see families as your family, see towns as your town, see countries as your country, see words as your word. How do I know that this word is such? By this.
Thank you. So if no other hand, I will share my screen.
And I'll read from my copy.
Okay, Amang, 54. I assume you can see it.
Yes, I just got to escape out of the full screen there. Chapter 54, well built. What is well built cannot be uprooted. What is well held cannot be stripped off. The ancestry worshipped by descendants won't be disregarded. Cultivated in yourself, the is genuine. Cultivated in your family, the is abundant. Cultivated in your village, the is everlasting. Cultivated in your state, the is prosperous. Cultivated in the world, the is universal. Therefore, through yourself, you can observe others' selves. Through your family, you can observe others' families. Through your village, you can observe others' villages. Through your state, you can observe others' states. And through your world, you can understand the world. How do I know the situation of the world? By means of this.
Thank you, Amang. So this one and the next one, I think this both 54 and the 55 are talking about the, and which you can translate as a power or virtue. And these two chapters, 54 and 55, could be a little bit different for the person who attended last week, a week before. Last week, we talked about a lot of, in my understanding, is political. And this one, I believe, 54 and 55, talking about personal cultivation, okay? The reason is, that's why I translate as cultivate. And some other translation I heard talking about following, which I disagree. I think xiu, this word, is very typical Chinese word, talking about cultivate, to self-cultivation, this kind of meaning. So if I separate this chapter to three parts. First part, what is well built cannot be uprooted. What is well held cannot be stripped off. The ancestry worship by descendant won't be disregarded. So these three things considered as a common sense. For the ancient time Chinese, everybody know this situation, right? Somebody built, some building built well, cannot be uprooted. If you hold tight, cannot be stripped off. If the ancestral worship, you will continue. That's a common sense. So I don't see the first part is a teaching. In another way, the first part just a description. And the second part and the third part is so-called normative, right? That the teacher is tell you what you need to do. So it tell you what to do. Okay, so the logic is very simple. From small to large, right? From yourself to your family, to your village, to your state, to the entire world. Okay, so that's very typical ancient Chinese logic, right? From the very small, okay, you do it yourself, take care of yourself, to your family, to your village, to your neighborhood, to your state, to the international, to the entire world. So Confucianism also has the same logic. So the first part talk about taking care of, cultivate in yourself. And I have to say, the word yourself, your personal, is the inserted word, because in the Chinese, it doesn't say that. I just have to assume it. because in the second part got a little bit difficult to interpret because it said the Chinese word said, I translate as through yourself you can observe other self. And I heard some translation one talk about look your family as other family, right? That's another way to look at it. And another way talking about the see other family as your family. Okay, I think logically or not logically, the grammar if you talk about grammatically, they all correct because in Chinese words only say use this to observe this. Okay, so that's the same word. Use whole family to observe family. So I have to, or we have to find a way to make sense of this sentence. So our decision is through your family, you can observe other family. Through your village, you can observe other village. Through your state, you can observe other state. And through your word, you can understand the word. So through your view of word, so you can under other. So you will, at least it will make sense to from self to outside because it will answer the last question. How do I know the situation of the world? By means of this, right? So through the self, family, village, state, and the world. And remember in, I think on the 52, right? On the chapter 52, if we remember on 52, it talk about how to know the word, right? It talk about close the mouth, shut the door, and then that's the way to know the word. So this one 54 seems to explain, right? How you close the door, shut the mouth, then you can know everything outside. You don't look it through the window, you still know the word. Then that this chapter seems to explain, right? Two parts. One is cultivate yourself all the way up to the entire world. Second part is to understand yourself and the others, your family and the others, and through the entire world. So I think that's the teaching of chapter 54. That's my interpretation about this chapter. So Amang, I hope, yeah, please.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, this is another iteration of how to obtain insight. I won't say knowledge or wisdom, but insight through the Taoist prescription of it. And I think Jason pointed out this third section where the translation becomes really challenging, because if you literally were to try and translate a section like 一想万想, what you're really reading, if we go as literal as possible, is something that says, so as to self, observe self. That isn't even an English grammatical term, let alone is it very intelligible from in terms of the English reader trying to understand. But there's sentiment of what was meant there, and it is intelligible in traditional Chinese. And so as to family, observe family, we have to kind of come up with the subject of the sentence. And I think that Jason's interpretation there makes it much more clear. Through your family, you are able to observe others' families. But when you're dealing with a word structure that is as loose as that, you can get a broad variety of interpretation. And as we were talking about right before we started the meetup officially, translation works on a spectrum of literal to interpretation. And you fall within that spectrum somewhere. The translation Jason is putting forward that we're working on together is meant to be as literal as possible, but it's impossible to do without some interpretation. Others have written what are deemed translations that are really further on the spectrum towards interpretations or just their expression of what they understood from the Tao Te Ching, whether or not they read Chinese or have any truck with it. So yeah, as far as the message here, though, that idea, what is the Taoist prescription for insight? It is that through yourself, by virtue of the fact that you are part of the warp and woof and normal function of a turning, twisting universe, you can observe how that manifestation of all of this reflects how all of this works. So there is a axiom version of this, as above, so below. But the idea being that I can observe in my own self patterns, behaviors, inclinations, tendencies. If I observe closely, I can see those same patterns, tendencies, and iterations in the world around me. I wake up, I go to sleep. There's daytime, there's nighttime. I am young and youthful and full of vigor, and then I'm old and on a cane. There's spring, there's summer, there's fall, there's winter. The patterns that persist in your existence are just reiterations of a greater pattern that can be known through close observation of yourself. That's the prescription that's being offered in this passage.
Jason?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah. So you probably want to make me a co-host. So
Yes. Let me go ahead and do that. Give me just a second.
so right now we can if you have a question, comment about this chapter, please raise your hand or type exclamation mark. So Ralph, please.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was interested in your choice of ancestor worship. The worship seems like a fairly strong choice. Some of the other translations talk about sacrifice or rituals. Ancestor worship makes it sound rather religious. Now, do you think this is referring to particular forms of ancestor worship, particular rituals? Some of the translations refer to sacrifice. So I wonder if you could comment on what you think is intended by ancestor worship. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I just translate by the word, Chinese word, 祭祀. Okay, so it's a worship. It's a ceremonial custom. Okay, so you can call it a religion, but we also can call it a custom. That's the people do it. Okay, so people probably do it without thinking too much. There's no, in the Chinese word, there's no ancestry. Okay, doesn't have this word. So I have to admit, I insert this word. Technically, I should put a parenthesis here because the Chinese word here, there's no ancestry, only have 祭祀, okay, means worship, ceremonial worship. And then if I don't put the ancestry here, may lead people to thinking about something else. So here I put this one because this word worship, which is not Christian kind of religion, let's put this way, not the Christian kind of religion, it's more a tradition way to do it. Just as like I explained at the beginning, the first 3 lines, basic talking about the common sense. Lao Tzu, the author, is not teaching you anything. It just say like, okay, you know, if you worship, then your ancestry line will continue. That's a common sense. You study, then you get a good grade. That's it. He didn't say anything you need to do until the second part and the third part. Yeah, I hope I make it clear. This.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the defense of the selection of ancestor worship, because truly Jisoo could be considered, worship or sacrifice, but there is almost nothing more pan-Asian than ancestor worship. In fact, it's probably considered the most ubiquitous characteristic from Chinese culture to endure through every reiteration of Chinese culture. And what Lao Tzu is talking about here is something that is boilerplate, something that every Chinese person would just simply understand the importance of. Even today, grave tending day is a big holiday in China, and you could call it worship, you could think of it as religious, you could think of it as merely cultural. The lines really blur. It's a distinction without much difference in that culture, in that part of the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Amon. Next up is going to be Madeline, followed by David. Madeline.
Yes, thank you, Jason, and thank you, Amon. I would not have thought I would have gotten so much out of something in such a short amount of time. I especially like the tying back to the previous verse. And I thought this was going to veer right into sort of prescriptive Confucianism. And instead, it seems like a sort of thing that says, you take your place in the great scheme of things. And then when you do that and see what the proportions are of everything, then you'll be able to understand the place and proportions of everything else, so to speak. And the ending reminded me very much of the ending to the Chuang Tzu, Happy Fish, where he says, I know this because I'm standing here on the bridge. It's that same sense of being centered in your de. So that was really the main thing I got out of it, was it resonated with that other story. Thanks.
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, since Mandarin talk about Confucianism, so I kind of hesitate whether I should bring up this one, but since Mandarin give me an excuse to talk about this part, I'm happy to share this part because I cannot stop thinking about compare this one so-called the great learning. Okay, the logic are the same. So just for the person who, well, I just have to assume, okay, you don't know great learning. Great learning is a very important Confucian text, not in the Analect. It's written by Confucius' grandson. Okay, that's written by Confucius, become very important in the Neo-Confucianism movement. So basically, the text, I'm not going to recite the text. Confucian great learning basically take us the personal cultivation. So Confucius talking about also the same way, self, body, village, state, and the world. But you can compare Confucianism and the Taoism. I put a list here. When Taoism talk about cultivate yourself, the De will become genuine. But Confucian talk about cultivate yourself, right? And he talk about perfect yourself. When Taoism talking about the family, he talk about abundant. Confucian talk about regulate your family. Okay, and in the text there has no village part, but for the state, Taoism talking about use the word prosperous. Confucius use the word govern the state. When you talk to the word, you talk about universal. It's a common value kind of thing. Okay, and then Confucius talking about pacify the world. You can see Taoism and the Confucian, they use the same logic. Cultivate from yourself, your family, state, and the entire world. The same logic, but their purpose is different, right? Confucius are more involved. He's talking about regulate the family, govern the state, pacify the world. And then Taoism more passive, talking about the De will make you this, the De will make family abundant, the De will make the state prosperous, the De will make the world universal, this kind of So it's very interesting to compare. At least for me, it's very interesting. So that's why I like to share with everyone. Yeah.
Jason, great table. I think this is a beautiful summary. Thank you. Amon.
I don't need to jump the line, but I couldn't resist saying I disagree with you on only one thing: Confucius' discussion of the village. It's not as explicit, but there is a whole section, Ren in the village or Ren in the neighborhood. And Confucius talks about, would it be better that a whole village likes somebody or a whole village hates somebody? He says, I'd like the good people to have good opinions and the poor people to have poor opinions of a person. So in Confucius' estimation, the village is kind of a testing ground or crucible for the jinshi in training.
Thank you, Amon. Next up is going to be David, followed by Paul. David.
Yes, thanks. I was just reminded of this list in this table of comments by various psychologists of, first get your own house in order, then get your family, and to not sort of jump the line. And I was curious, it seemed to resonate in the same way that, okay, if you understand how to create a good environment in your own, for yourself, get your own house in order, as they say, and then, can you expand that and do something benefit to your family, benefit to your neighborhood, benefit to your village? Don't just start saying, okay, my life is a mess, but I'm going to fix the world because, I don't know what, my life is complete chaos, but I know how to fix everybody else. So I was just curious if this ordering here in this list at all was could be interpreted that way, of to make yourself genuine, to be useful, to be effective in these explicit stages of one's environment.
Jason or Amon?
I think I agree.
Sorry, I'm taking care of some technical issue that Huang cannot get in. So, so.
Okay. Right. Next up is going to be Paul, and Jason, you can pipe in on this whenever you want. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we certainly see that in JSON table, the order matters, which is often true in JSON tables. But anyway, I'm going to just ask about the interpretation of the self, family, world, that whole part at the end there. And what I'm getting from what you guys said is, and even if you read it with only the words just like they were in that nonsensical manner, it sort of like implies that your frame on what a family is what you use to observe other families. Your frame on what a family is, your perspective. And it's sort of one way of thinking about it is that's all you can do. But it's sort of admonishing that for insight, if I understood Amon correctly, then you have to ask, I'm asking at least, what are the other ways one could look at the concept of family other than through one's own lens? I just think that's an interesting question to ask. What's he bouncing his version of insight against? For instance, adopting other people's version of family as what family is? Is that what he means? Or is he warning against taking the wrong context, like a guy who runs his family like it's a government? So then you're applying state to family. But I'm just curious what he's bouncing that off against? Maybe it relates to Confucianism. Okay, his admonishment is go through the lens of self. Or maybe I don't understand that right. So that's what I'm thinking about. Thanks.
Okay, let me try to answer your question on this, or let's call it a challenge on this. Actually, I think Among agree with me. This text is difficult on the interpretation. If I want to be fully honest on the oh, sorry, just 1 minute. Let me share the screen. Okay, so the text here is, if you read in Chinese, a very simple text, right? 以身观身，以家观家，以国观国, right? 以乡观乡，以国观国. Okay, so it's just repeat the word. Use A, observe A. Use B, observe B. Use C, observe C. Use D, observe D. So that's the text is simple like this. And the word observe, I will take observe. 观 means observation. 观察. Yeah, it's observation without interfering. Okay, that's my interpretation. So that's why I have to consider as use myself to understand, to observe others, use my family to understand other family. So that's the only way it makes sense to me. All right. So back to your question, what is he against? I will say he's against Confucianism because Confucius used the word 修齐治平, which is active, not passive. It's correct your mind before yourself. Confucianism also talk about correct your mind, study, correct your mind, cultivate yourself, regulate. Use the word regulate, govern, pacify. They all active some action on that. Unlike Taoism, is kind of observing. So I think if you want to ask what does this text writing against, that would be the Confucianism, compare the difference between Confucianism.
Thank you. Next up is going to be, let's see, Paul is done. Wait a minute. It's going to be Nick followed by Penny. Nick.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't resist to comment on Paul's question before making one of my original thoughts. The relativity is a bit difficult when you come to the universe, because you cannot compare one universe with another. There's only one universe. So my version of the translation actually take a slight different point of view. Instead of comparing family with other family, actually it says something like, observe the characteristic of a family to assess, and observe the characteristic of a village to assess, because the characteristic of a family, of a person, of a village, of a country, etc., is cultivated by the amount of the Tao there. So that's the logic of that alternative translation. But anyway, my original comment was actually try to get back to Rolf's question, like to add a footnote to the defense offered by Jason. I think Jason's defense could be strengthened in the sense that ancestor can be deduced from the text, even though there's no reference to ancestor in the text. That's the object of being worshipped, but who is doing the worshiping? Well, offsprings doing the worshiping, and by logic deduction, offsprings doing the worshiping of their ancestors.
Thank you, Nick. Next up is going to be Penny. Penny, go ahead.
Okay, I just had a quick comment after Paul's question, because I kind of was thinking about it like, observing the family, your family. And so I was thinking, well, like if you talk about your neighbors and you say, oh, their sons are, they have filial piety and everything is going well and things are going really great, but you really don't know the whole situation in the family. You don't know what's going on between the people, but in your family you do. And so it seems to me like maybe they're saying, look at what you really see in the world and take that as the basis of the way the world is. Don't take the basis of something that you think, because, when you observe them, they always seem to be doing a certain type behavior, but you don't know maybe when they're in the house and you don't see them what's going on, whereas you do know what's going on when you're in your own house and interacting with all the people. So that was just something that occurred to me, and for the other areas too.
Okay, Penny, thank you for bringing up this one. So I like to focus the word here. Okay, let me share screen one more time. Hold on, just 1 minute. Okay, basics, the word we are talking about here is very important. It is to base my understanding of Tao Te Ching. This word, guan, okay, if you see, they use the guan all the time, okay, and they, in today's Chinese, people talk
We
about,
can't see the, Jason, we can't see the words.
you can see the, do you see
I'll
my
drop
screen?
I'll drop Guan into the chat, but yeah, the screen's blank.
The screen is blank? Okay, just do one more time, okay, so, let me see. Can you see the screen now?
Nope.
What? Okay, so.
We just see one straight line, white line.
We see the,
Oh.
we see the window bar, but we don't see, we see it's blank, but there's nothing in the window.
I know Zoom sometimes has this problem, so I probably have to check out later. Okay, don't worry. Okay, so it's not that important, but the word guan, okay, today Chinese word talking about observation, talk about guan cha, two words, guan and cha. If you read the Tao Te Ching in Chinese, you will find out cha, this word, the second word, okay, is a bad word, okay. Lao Tzu constantly say, don't do, doing guan, not cha. In today's words, we say guan and cha. That means observation. Okay, this kind of observation, probably like what Penny talk about observation. You talking about, you judging, you exam. Okay, so the second word is a bad word. The first word is a good word because you see it without doing anything. I think without judgment. That's my own interpretation. So I think the Taoism observation is important. How you observe and understand without interfering, judging, or because a lot of time you observe, you put your own standard over there, and then it causes the problem. Okay, I'll stop here, because I don't want to go too much. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. Next up is JP. JP, go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking back to verse 1 and 2 in reference to a cultivation and an observation. And one immediately lets us know we're talking about words, we're going to use words. We want to try to understand what's really out there beyond, before those words. I mean, what's not the manifestation. And so what we're cultivating all the time is in the manifestations with the words and what we do. And it all the time about emptying the mind, filling the stomach, keeping quiet, getting away from the tastes and the sounds. I think it's about cultivating beyond thinking it's a family and it's a village and it's a world. We know we separate these things, but beyond what Tao is, beyond that manifested Tao, there is something else. And what the observation I find for myself is, I don't see my village as another village or compare this village to that village. I understand that beyond the word village, beyond the conglomerate people and structures that are made, is an unmanifested Tao that is the true Tao. So the Tao beyond this village is the same Tao that's beyond that other village, not what I see and understand here in my village or that village. Why, when it gets to the end with 80 or 81, I don't have to go to another village to know what another village is about, to hear the roosters and the dogs. I have that here in the real Tao that's unmanifested. So that's what I'm observing from the cultivation of finding that within myself, is that's how I really connect with everything. Not that I am all these different words, but all those other words can be taken away and then everything is thus connected. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, JP. All right. Shall we go to number 55? So that way we would have covered it in about close to 45 minutes, the first one. So we'll have a little bit of time at the end for discussion as we had planned. All right. If you'd like to read number 55, go ahead and type an exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom. Would like multiple readings. We'll start with Kwan. Kwan, go ahead.
Excuse me, Kwang, you don't see the link in the meetup page?
Yeah, probably probably the problem is on my side, but
Okay.
but it's not only in this group, it's on many groups. We will see in the future.
Okay.
Translation by Professor Most Roberts, stanza 55. Who holds within the fullest power to a newborn may be compared, which no insect stings, no wild beast seizes, no talon bird snatches. Though soft-boned and weak-limbed, its grip is firm. Before it ever knows of intercourse, its standing phallus shows its full life force. It cries all day without a loss of voice, a sign of its perfect balance. Knowing balance means constant norm. Knowing the norm means inner vision. Enhancing life means good fortune. Mind controlling spirit means inner strength. Beware old age in pride of manly might. For that means working against the way. Work against the way, die before your day.
Thank you, Kwan. Next up is Penny.
Okay, I'm going to read the J.H. MacDonald version. One who is filled with the Tao is like a newborn child. The infant is protected from the stinging insects, wild beasts, and birds of prey. Its bones are soft, its muscles are weak, but its grip is firm and strong. It doesn't know about the union of male and female, yet his penis can stand erect because of the power of life within him. It can cry all day and never become hoarse. This is perfect harmony. To understand harmony is to understand the constant. To know the constant is to be called enlightened. To unnaturally try to extend life is not appropriate. To try and alter the life breath is unnatural. The master understands that when something reaches its prime, it will soon begin to decline. Changing the natural is against the way of the Tao. Those who do it will come to an early end.
Thank you, Penny. I'm going to read from Ursula Le Guin. Being full of power is like being a baby. Scorpions don't sting, tigers don't attack, eagles don't strike. Soft bones, weak muscles, but a firm grasp. Ignorant of the intercourse of man and woman, yet the baby penis is erect, true and perfect energy, all day long screaming and crying, but never getting hoarse, true and perfect harmony. To know harmony is to know what's eternal. To know what's eternal is enlightenment. Increase of life is full of portent. The strong heart exhausts the vital breath. The full grown is on the edge of age. Not the way. What's not the way soon dies. All right, Jason and Aman.
Do you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, I fixed it.
Chapter 55.
Oh, no.
Possessing De. Those who possess the profundity of De are like newborn babies. Poisonous insects do not sting them. Ferocious beasts do not grab them. Birds of prey do not attack them. Their bones are weak, their tendons soft, but their grip is firm. Not yet knowing about sexual intercourse, but their little penises can still become erect. This is because they are in a state of optimal virility. They can cry all day, but never get hoarse. This is because they are in the state of optimal harmony. Knowing harmony is common. Knowing the common is enlightenment. Improving lives is auspicious. Using the bosom to drive chi is strength. Things that grow robust will become old. They are without Tao. Without Tao, they come to an early end.
Thank you, Aman. I think this chapter and the previous chapter basically talk about not much political, especially this one is not political at all, also about personal. And then this one I see it's very special because I think Taoism, in general, Taoism has a 3 parts of teaching. First part is talk about taking care of your body. Second part, talking about how to live in this world. You will see a lot especially in the Zhuangzi text. Another thing tell you how to live in this world. And another part, third part is political. So Laozi we done a lot of political. So this one is the old tradition of Taoism, which is talking about taking care of your body, your physical body. Okay, so this one, so it reflects the Taoism thinking of taking care of your body. We all want to avoid, we anti-aging. Right now, people spend a lot of money to do an anti-aging, okay, technique or medicine, cream, whatever. But Taoism thinking is go back to the newborn baby. The words here use 赤子. That means the newborn baby. This text have the 2 parts, same thing. The first part is kind of like common sense. Then the common sense, you observe, you know the common sense, and that's the reason. The second part is teaching, ask you to do something. Okay, that's 2 parts. So let's go to the first part. I think this could be the common sense. Let's assume that's a common sense. Okay, the first one is open light, talk about possession, the De, just like a baby. So the idea is when you were born, you're full of energy, but you gradually lose and then get old, then you die. Okay, so that's the concept. So so Lao Tzu, the author, used baby, newborn baby as example. Okay, so he talked about the insect never sting them, the ferocious beast never grab them, birds of prey do not attack them. Well, that's just assume that's truth. Okay, another one way to explain is they are living in the house. So the beast, the birds, the bee sting never have the chance to attack them. That's another way to say they are not in the the dangerous place. So then they talk about their bone are soft. I think that's true, right? You will see the newborn baby always holds the fist, right? Because the fist is very tight. Even their bone and the tendon are very soft, right? And then baby, and I think if you have a baby boy, you probably know, they have some erection sometimes. And for sure, they don't know the sexual intercourse, but they still have a erection on that. So I believe that's true. And hardly you see baby's voice become hoarse because even they cry all day long. So the Taoism explanation is because they have very so-called 精之至也, Jing optimal virility. Okay, so I have to explain a little bit here. The Jing, I think, what's the other translation? But basically, this word is deal with sperm, with the male originality. So that means the very high power, okay, during the early, when you were born. And the second word, 和之至也, because the harmony, it's optimal harmony, okay, optimal virility. So that's the situation of the newborn baby. So then come with the teaching, right? So knowing harmony is common, knowing harmony is enlightenment. Then talking about you use your, I decide to use boson since Among suggests. I think that's a good word to consider as xin, which is mind, also heart. So use your boson to drive the qi that calls strength. So strength is not in your muscle. It's using your qi. That's the muscle. If you play Tai Chi, you probably know, right? You can push people, you can jump high, you can do many, many things, but not using your muscle. It's using your qi. And how do you drive your qi? Use your mind or heart, or we call it the boson, to drive your qi. So idea is things grow robust will become old. So you think about you build a muscle, okay, go to the gym, exercise, they become robust, but that means you getting old and then it's not Tao and you turn out have early end. So I'm not here to judge which way is right, which way is wrong, but important concept here is you can see the Taoism, like Tai Chi, is never talking about building muscle, never talking about making strong, right? Always use the qi in the soft part. That's the logic behind. So I think that's the teaching of this one. There's a lot of small part. Okay, for example, in this text, I'm interested is about here talking about the baby penis. You talking about the sexual intercourse. I like to talk about this part about how does the text, ancient text, deal with sexual intercourse. In Taoism, in this text, you will find out that they have the 3 levels of sex. Okay, one you call yin yang. We call it the metaphysical level. So you talk about yin and the yang. Okay, that's one way of talking about sex. Another way talk about male, female, 男女. That's another way to talk about. Here, he talk about 聘母. 聘母 is pure animal kind of intercourse or copulate, right? So basics, I think later chapter you will see Taoism use a lot of words. 聘母. Basically, this one is kind of very raw, very directly point to the sexual organ and this kind of thing. So That's why I think that this text is interesting because they use the example very, very animal-like, okay, example to talk about human, okay, and to talk about your health. Another part, I also find out that the translation is the word 常 here. I decided to translate as common, and I heard some translate as balance, constant, eternal. There's many way to translate. After think about long time, I still think we should translate as a common, which is more reflect the word 常 means every day. I think Madeline talking about this. It kind of every day, not changing. Constant is right, but it's every day. The very common. That's why everyday life never change. So this kind of concept of unchanging. So I will stop here for now and then take a little bit long to explain this one, and then Amang, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. I love this chapter. This is one of my favorites because I consider it a litmus test chapter of whether I'm reading a Confucian interpreting or translating the Tao Te Ching, or if I'm reading a Taoist translating the Tao Te Ching, or somewhere in between. But the provincial mores of Confucian China would just not be discussing a young child's erect penis. But Confucius has, or Lao Tzu, excuse me, has no qualms about using it as an illustration. They would also blush a little to talk about the union of male and female. By the way, my favorite euphemism in Chinese, battle of clouds and rain. That's probably the one I find most eloquent. But yeah, there's a lot of euphemisms surrounding these ideas, and Lao Tzu cuts straight through them, more or less. He just drives the point straight home by saying, no, this is what we're talking about, and this is what it is. So what are we talking about? Well, to start with, we're talking about poisonous insects, ferocious beasts, and birds of prey, images of creatures of deadly prowess, images of creatures who have a duh of being fierce. Poisonous insects are dangerous. We avoid having scorpions around us because we realize it's their nature, their virtue, their duh, that they'll sting you if they get in a bad mood. Giant beast will, if they attack you, maul you. That is how they attack you. They don't go and, you know, create some strategic ambush to like have the hyenas soften you up and then I'll jump out of the tree. No, they go full bore straight in. Birds of prey are same. They're going to dive and attack. They're not going to do something. So these are creatures that have a duh that is so explicit that any reader would go, oh yeah, I know what the duh of poisonous insects are. I know what the duh of birds of prey are. Swoop. But then what's the duh of a powerful human? It's not what we think it is. It is this newborn baby model. Why is that so powerful? Well, because look at the examples I'm giving you of its virility, of its ability to scream until it's hoarse, or never go hoarse, because it just can scream all day. And anybody who's been a new parent knows exactly what that's like. So in this, there are three things mentioned. And if you don't know your Chinese medicine, it's easy to overlook them. And we got one because one is, Jason retained the word qi in the Chinese. We translated qin as bosom. I'm warming up to it. It is a good fit. It is a really good fit. It's just a very archaic English term. And jing is the other thing that is talked about here. In Chinese medicine, these are called the Sambao, or three treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen. And these are the three things to be cultivated to become this newborn baby, this model of virility that you really want to be, to actually be healthy. As I like to say, there's no old timers league for football or for boxing. You can engineer yourself into a top physical performance for a very brief peak of time, but that's not going to endure. It's not going to last. You find me a semi-pro football player past the age of 40 with good knees, and I will show you a unicorn. You make those sacrifices for that performance, but the Taoist prescription is not for performance, it's for longevity. And here you're seeing how that plays out.
Thank you, Amon. All right, folks, so would love to hear your comments on this. We are going to start with Nick. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Having trouble understanding the passage after the baby. This is against science, right? Or against nature. If you leave a baby in the wild, the animals will grab it, the beasts will grab it, right? So what's going on? What is he talking about?
Yeah, yeah, that's a very strange part. I hope somebody have a better explanation. So they just say so. Okay, so it's illogical. But I agree with you. Only way you can assume is the baby stay home, so the beast have no chance to grab them. Okay.
Or the baby is the model, but the person being discussed is not actually a baby. The person is somebody whom these beasts won't attack. And the baby is the model to obtaining that.
Thank you, folks. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to read the comment that Ursula Le Guin has. Ursula Le Guin doesn't do comments in most of the 81 chapters, but there are only like 5 or 6 where she does comments. And here she does comment, and it's worth reading. As a model for the Taoist, the baby is in many ways ideal, totally unaltruistic, not interested in politics, business, or the proprieties, weak, soft, and able to scream placidly for hours without wearing itself out. Its parents are another matter. The baby's unawareness of poisonous insects and carnivorous beasts means that such dangers simply do not exist for it. Again, its parents are a different case. As a metaphor for the Tao, the baby embodies the eternal beginning, the ever-springing source. We come trailing clouds of glory, Wordsworth says, and Hopkins, there lives the dearest freshness, deep down things. No Peter Panish refusal to grow up is involved here. No hunt for the fountain of youth. What is eternal is forever young. It never grows old. But we are not eternal. It is in this sense that I understand how the natural, inevitable cycle of youth, growth, mature vigor, age, and decay can be not the way. The way is more than the cycle of any individual life. We rise, flourish, and fail. The way never fails. We are waves. It is the sea. All right. Next up is Quan. Oh, sorry, Jason, you had something to say.
Oh yeah,
Quan, go
just quickly, just when I heard you were reading, just I think to another way to answer Nick's comment is, he's talking about a super baby. Okay, so that's that baby is not only just description. It's kind of like the author make the baby as the role model, and then you should be like the baby. Okay, don't know the sexual intercourse is still erectable, and you soft but grip firm, and then it's invincible by outside force. So I think that's another way to think about it.
Thank you, Jason. Next up is Quan, followed by Madeline. Quan.
Okay, so I want to read again the first two lines of Professor Mose Roberts' translation. Who holds within the fullest power to a newborn may compare, right? So here, of course, here is a comparison to the newborn. So, but the person who holds within the fullest power, I think we have to understand here the fully enlightened man who is completely in the full awareness of his being. And in the Taoist text, either in the Lao Tzu, the Zhuang Tzu, when you have strange stuff like that no insect can bite it, or no birds can snatch it, or no beast can seize it, it is because it is referring to that pure formless awareness that is completely above the phenomenal dimension. Okay, so most of the time, the Taoist master would choose a ferocious beast living in the animal kingdom or the phenomenal world to illustrate the fact that those beasts cannot attack something as ethereal and absolute as formless awareness. And I want to come back to the triad Qi, Jing, and Shen, okay, because that is those are Taoist concepts who are at the boundary of philosophy, but also of medicine as understood in India, in China, okay, because you have exactly the same concept in India when we are speaking of Qi and Jing. It's precisely what the Indian call prana bindu, okay. So, and that prana bindu is precisely the prana is that energy that is about the breath, okay, because the Christian translation for prana would be breath, but not in the sense of oxygen and nitrogen and CO2, okay, but rather that ethereal energy that is the base of life. And when people are practicing meditation, is precisely to make to bring order to that flux of prana, of chi, and precisely what would bring and the Taoist master use an expression that I'm quite sure that the meditation in India, masters in India used to, that pure consciousness is riding the chi, okay, or Shan is riding the chi, or I would say if I use Sanskrit, Vidya is riding prana bindu. Okay, so here, what is spontaneous in the baby, it would be lost because of the interference of the mind, precisely of the mind having received the social learning, because we already talked about the social learning versus the cosmic learning, and that the Taoist masters say, wow, social learning is an inevitable evil since we live in a society, but please don't let the child lose his natural cosmic awareness. So bring some meditation when he's very young, so he wouldn't inevitably be poisoned by the social learning, but at the same time he would be given some tool not to lose his cosmic natural being. Okay, so some cosmic learning at the same time that the social learning. That's why once again I go back to the translation by Professor Roberts. It cries all day without a loss of voice, a sign of its perfect balance. Okay, balance between what? Balance between the inevitable poison social learning because we are humans being, and that child who would be lucky enough to have parents that would have introduced the cosmic learning at the same time, so he would not lose his natural awareness. So because knowing balance means constant norm, okay, and I come here to PG, okay, the constant presence of awareness, okay, and that is that constant norm. Knowing the norm means inner vision, meaning that faculty of being in your being precisely. Enhancing life means good fortune. Okay, so I agree with Amon. That stanza is absolutely awesome. I stop here.
Thank you. Thank you, Quan. I really like Madeline's quote in the chat. I want to be a baby when I grow up. All right, Madeline, you're next.
Yeah, I'm going to modify that. Thanks to Jason. Now I want to be a super baby when I grow up. The last stanza of this reminds me of chapter 40. The reversal is the movement of Tao. So development to one extreme naturally moves everything to the other.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Anybody else has any comments? Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to focus on this word Ming. This is enlightenment. It's composed in Chinese character, the sun and the moon together. So that's very bright enlightenment. So it's towards the end of the passage. To see my translation reads, to see the eternity is discerning. And last week in verse 52, we read that to see small things, that is enlightenment, that discerning. So it's the exact same character in both places. So what is he meant by either seeing the small things and then you are enlightened, or seeing the eternity, you're enlightened? How do we understand it?
Jason or Amon?
Yeah, I'd like to talk to this. Ming, this word has been used I don't know how many times in the Taoist text in the Tao Te Ching. So great, Nick mentioned about on chapter 52, talk about seeing the small is enlight. Okay, I like the word enlightenment because it means you understand. All of a sudden, you realize everything. So seeing small is irrelevant. The comparison, the next sentence we talk about embrace soft means strong. So it's soft. Okay, you keep soft means strong. You see small means you see a lot. Okay, I think that's very paradoxical, but that's the Taoism teaching. To be eternal, be like a baby. Okay, so I think it's everything just opposite. If you compare to chapter 55, we are reading. It's talking about what's that? Talking about don't grow robust, become old, right? So you should keep soft, keep baby, seeing small. And here has a different interpretation about mean the enlightenment. Say, is it knowing the common is enlightenment? Okay, so the word 常, there's many different translation. Some translate as a balance, constant, eternal. So I see the most translation is eternal or no. but I still like the word common because it match to Taoism logic, because you are not seeing something like absolute or something eternal to enlighten. You are seeing the small thing, you are seeing the common thing to enlighten, not seeing like meet the God, okay, and then I got enlightened. I got the truth, the eternal truth, then I enlightened. It's a different. You look at looking small, you got enlightened. Seeing the common thing, you enlightened. I think that's the Taoism logic here. And that's why I take a little bit controversial way to translate this word 常 as common, or use Mandarin's words every day. Okay, something. Okay, thank you.
Amon?
I appreciate Jason's actual choice to translate Chang as common, because yeah, it does. All too often, readers of the Tao Te Ching, when they encounter the concept, they kind of inflate and elevate. And throughout the Tao Te Ching, you're actually told that's not where you need to be looking. Stop sitting out staring up at the stars. That's not where you are, and that's not how you're going to get it. Nick asked about seeing, in this infinitesimal what is, enlightenment. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm giving a lecture on enlightenment here, but I got a tiny single thread came off of my sweater, and I was just about to throw it away, and then I really thought about it and really thought about it. This thread is made of cotton and dyed with some sort of textile dye, but that cotton was grown before it was turned into thread. It was a plant in the middle of a field, and it wasn't just a plant, it was a plant that grew out of soil that had to be fertilized by the detritus of other creatures and the energy of the sun to produce this thing of cotton. And the person who made this thread, because all clothing has to be done by hand, this person had to eat some of the same food that turned into that detritus that was. If you look at something really, really small and really delve into everything about it, you wind up at sort of an infinitum reduction that, oh yeah, the whole operation of the universe went into that. And that's not an arguable proposition. It just is the way the world actually is. But one of my favorite authors once said, humans don't only use 10% of their brain, they got to use the other 90% to filter out the absolute awestruck amazingness that the universe is. Otherwise, you would just walk around day in, day out with a look of utter shock on your face all the time at how astonishing it is that this confluence of all these things can come together to give me sparkling water in a all too, Megadeth can.
Thank you, Amon. All right, so let's see. Penny, go ahead. Folks, go ahead and type an exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom if you'd like to bring up anything. Now we're getting into a discussion period, so you're welcome to bring up anything connected with Taoism. Go ahead, Penny.
Okay, I just wanted to read, I know we've been talking about, literal translations and interpretations, and the end of the Ron Hogan one, it's such an interpretation. I thought it was kind of amusing. It's not healthy to try to prolong your life. It's unnatural to impose the mind's will upon the body. People waste time and energy trying to be strong or beautiful, and their strength and beauty fade. They've lost touch with Tao. And when you lose touch with Tao, you might as well be dead.
I would say that's a very good translation, okay, but none of the word match, but it's a very good translation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next up is Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I'm thinking again back to Nick's question about, well, wait, these guys, this baby's just going to get eaten up, and Jason's response. But a few times as we've been reading along, there have been metaphors used, and you guys explained it, and I said, why did he use such a sort of odd indirect metaphor to say that? And one of the other cases was this. It was that other chapter that you indirectly referred to, Jason, where an adult was told, well, we were told they can't be hurt by animals, attacked by anything. And your interpretation of that was, well, that just means they're going to stay home, which isn't that, am I correct about that, Jason? That going, yeah, okay. So why would he use such an odd way of describing that? And here there's no translation problem in this particular thing that's confusing me. You guys are letting me know the Chinese says that the baby won't be stung by poisonous insects or carried away by birds. Like it's not a problem with translation, yet he used this odd metaphor. So I'm thinking that this vision came to mind when you're reading that. It's almost like amazing. There's this kid in this sort of wilderness, and he's got this like emanation of power coming from him, and nothing can touch it. And it's in a pure natural state. But my point is, he's wanting us to get the poetry of it, because that will shake our mind into this other place where we can appreciate the Tao. So that's what my answer to my own proposed answer to my question. Thanks.
Does anybody else have proposed answers to Paul's question? Quan.
Yes, I think that the question of home is very interesting. And when we read the word home in Taoist text, yes, people have the impression that the Taoist master invite us just to stay home and not to go anywhere. But I think that we have to understand inner home, okay? Because once again, it's always a teaching about complete awareness. And that because when you will be completely realizing your inner nature, your inner home, you will always be home, even if you're not in your lodging. Okay, so and the image of the baby precisely is that that baby is in his inner home, and that's why he can cry all day and not losing energy, because precisely the loss of energy comes from the interference of the mind, and that mind has been fed by the social norm. And if you stay in your inner home, meaning your true original nature, you will not lose energy precisely. And because you will not lose energy, one of the minor consequences, okay, so I insist on that it is a minor consequence. One of the minor consequences is that your physical life will be prolonged, but that is not so important according to my understanding, because what is important is that you live a full life, and a full life is not necessarily a long life. It can be a long life, of course, but not necessarily.
Thank you, Quan. Next up is Jason.
Yeah, agree with Kwang, probably every word I agree, So I back to Paul's comment, the weird metaphor or example, baby or stay home. I think the baby is not weird. Basically, it's the key of the Taoism teaching, because back to just like medicine talk about, the returning is the movement back to your original state. Everything is talking about back to your original state. And another example, Paul mentioned the text. I think it's chapter 50. Okay, when we talk about 10 out of the 3 out of 10 may live, 3 out of 10 may die, 3 out of 10 may could live but die by entering the wrong place. Okay, so staying home, you can interpret, understand as avoid the dangerous place. Okay, so you walk about, you don't run into the ferocious tiger and the rhino because you avoid them. And then here, 入军不备兵甲. My understanding, you doing the military service, you do the logistic work, so you don't carry the weapon or shield, so you don't get killed. Okay, doing the housework. So stay safe. That's my understanding. So that's the way, Taoism thinking, a little bit retreat, be safe, and then back to the original.
Okay, so I'm going to stick my neck out here and defend the baby. Okay. I think this is actually a very profound point about Taoism. Because it is saying being full of power is like being a baby. So we are not talking about babies. It's like being a baby. Okay. That is the core point here. And that theme actually occurs throughout Tao Te Ching. It's the same when Bruce Lee says, be like water, my friend. Okay, that's exactly the same thought. What it is focusing on, I mean, imagine like if you want to take a mental picture, imagine one of these martial artists operating in midst of a battle. They are so calm and they're doing things, danger is all around them. But their level of awareness of themselves, the situation is such, is that in a very simple, gentle, smooth movement, they are able to handle themselves in the middle of all of that. Like water, they are able to flow through. It is like you're trying to act in accordance with the Tao, no matter what field you are in, just like a baby does. So it is just like the water flows, because you're trying to find the natural lines. And because you're acting in accordance with the natural lines, things that appear dangerous, you're able to handle them because you understand them. You're able to deal with them in its own way. That's what it is trying to say. So that's as I understand Taoism. Jason.
Yeah, I think you talk about Bruce Lee. That's a very good example, right? You talk about like. I kind of forget about like. Even I translate like baby, but I think that bring me to the typical situation in especially this text, Tao Te Ching text. It's sometimes we try to understand logically, but it's illogical, but they have their own purpose. They talk about things, and when I do translation, sometimes I make mistake by, well, that's my purpose. I try to go to word by word and connect every word with logic. But if I did such a good job, then turn out it become totally logic work, and then you probably lost the flavor on that. So a lot of time, we will let the image sit there, and then it may come up one day. So I think that's a very good reminder for me. A lot of time, the image itself, it brings the lesson. For example, the baby image. I believe with a detailed discussion about baby today, everybody have a kind of baby concept here. And one day when you do something, you might think about, this image, and it's not from your logic, not from syllogism, not from deduction logic, but the message will come out.